Hello, IB History Scholars. It's Mr. Newcomb. Today, I would like to focus on the Sino Japanese War. The Sino Japanese War marks an end of hostility between the nationalists and the communists in the first phase of the Chinese Civil War. They formed the United Front Alliance. It's an alliance that was kind of thrusted upon them or strongly encouraged that they form between each other by the United States and the Soviet Union. What we see early on in the Sino-Japanese War is that there's going to be some heavy casualties, primarily on the coastal, large industrial cities of China like Shanghai and Nanjing. And this seems to be the base of the nationalists, and so they're going to feel the brunt very early on. And so the nationalists are going to move China's capital, which is probably a good strategic move, but is going to be viewed as abandoning China to Japan. And Mao and the communists are going to use this move to their advantage. And so, with the setbacks that the nationals have against the Japanese, the communists are going to be able to use this as an opportunity. For instance, they'll expand their territory in northern China. Japan is going to focus more on holding the cities and the railways, not the countryside. And so, again, this is areas of nationalist control. The Red Army will harass and sabotage Japanese troops and supply lines. And even though they have a relationship, the Red Army has a relationship with Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union, not a lot of assistance was coming from the Soviet Union. And so whatever they could take, whatever they could get from their encounters with the Japanese is going to help them out in this phase, and then also in the second phase of the Chinese Civil War. And as a result of the Sino-Japanese War, one could say the membership in the Communist Party and the Red Army does grow, almost to 1,910,000 by 1945. So during this war, the U.S. is going to intervene and is going to help the nationalists. However, the relationship between us and the nationalists is going to be very uneasy. It's mainly over leadership and problems with the nationalist leadership and some of their activities that they are engaging in during the first phase of the Chinese Civil War and even during the Sino-Japanese War. Just makes that relationship a little uneasy here. But still, the nationalists are going to get crucial supplies, especially with the help of the Lend-Lease Act. In 1945, the Japanese are trying to find a way to end the war with China, and so they renew their offense, and it seemed to get the desired results that the Japanese were looking for. It does create some setbacks for the nationalists. Japan is going to occupy all of southern and eastern China, and the nationalists are simply going to suffer heavy casualties. But near the end of 1945, in August of 1945, Japan is going to end their involvement in the Second World War. They'll surrender, and that's going to leave a power vacuum in China that the nationalists and the communists are going to try to fill. And so that really is going to help spark the second phase of the Chinese Civil War. So when we look at this war, what kind of impact will it have on the nationalists here? And so the nationalists, they actually emerge militarily stronger due to the United States assistance. They get the badly needed military supplies and economic aid that they need. The nationalists, though, were politically weaker due to the criticism of their policies. They were simply unable to protect China from Japan, and they're going to lose a little respect because of that. And then the nationalists had lost much of needed tax revenue during the Japanese occupation. So economically, they are in a weaker position, even though the United States is helping them out with some economic assistance. It may not necessarily be enough. There is corruption within the GMD, the Kuomintang, or the Nationalist Army. And that's also part of why the United States is uneasy in our relationship with the nationalists. The conscription alienated the peasants, and so wherever the nationalist army went, they would be drafting the peasants to help fill their manpower needs, and that just creates problems. And the GMD was riddled with factions and repression. So the nationalists are going to emerge from the Sino-Japanese War not necessarily in a really good place of strength and position to uh, go into that second phase of the Chinese Civil War. Now, if we look at the impact on the communists, they might have seen themselves strengthened through the war. In many cases, it is related to the philosophy that Mao had, which was the 70-20-10 formula. 70% of the time, they're going to be expanding their territory, and they do that again in the northern regions of China. 20% dealing with the nationalists. That could be working with that united front, but also working against the united front, working against the nationalists, getting those opportunities to maybe weaken the nationalist forces, and then really only commit 10% of their efforts to take on the Japanese. So during the Sino-Japanese War, the nationalists are going to face most of the Japanese hostility. They enlarge, like I said, with that 70% expansion, they're going to enlarge its areas of control in northern China. And when they take over an area, when they expand their territory, they begin to enact some of their policies. So this transformation is beginning, and that usually involves Mao's version of communism and some of his progressive agendas, and that would be like land reform, redistribute the land to the peasants, setting up village schools and village soviets. And soviets is another word for councils, and then reduce taxes and abolish debts. So this really helped bring peasants to the communist side, which really is the base of Mao and the Communist Party. And so what we find is Mao also takes this opportunity to kind of solidify his control of the Communist Party. So he's going to emerge as the alpha leader here as a result of the rectification campaigns, which basically means he found ways to either isolate or eliminate his political opposition within the CCP. So with the conclusion of the Sino-Japanese War, the second phase of the Chinese Civil War will begin.